Good morning. I'm Terry from Material Rewards, and we are here with another Tidbits.
We're back.
Yeah, you might want to sit down. This one's going to be just a tad longer, but we figure everything we're going to show you is really important, so we wanted to try to cram it all into one video. What we're going to discuss today is the old standby, the half square triangles. This is a half square triangle. All right, everybody knows what that is. So we're going to show you a couple different ways to make them. There's some that are easier, some that are harder. The traditional way that you would make them is either you would cut two triangles and you would sew them together like we all have done in the past. Another way is if you take two squares, right sides together. Now you can either draw 1/4 of an inch from the center, and that's your stitch line, or you can draw a center line and stitch 1/4 inch on each side. Now the thing with this is chances are it's not going to be perfect. So lots of times what the patterns will have you do is stitch that, and then they'll go back and have you trim it up. So I'm going to just show you real quick how I like to trim it up. So basically you oversize it and then you trim it. So I like to draw my stitch line, because then I don't have to think quite as much. So here goes. So I'm just stitching on both of those lines. All right, so now we need to trim this up. So we're going to walk carefully so you don't get seasick.
I'm very careful about that.
Yep, over to the cutting mat. All right, so the first thing you do is obviously you lop it between the two stitch lines. All right, so let's pretend that this one we wanted to be, let's see, it's going to be around 2.5. Let's say we wanted this to be a 2-inch cut, so that'd be 1.5 inch finished. So if you think about that, if it's going to be 2 inches cut,
So this is if they've oversized and you need to trim them
Correct.
to size when you are done, if that's what
Right.
the instructions are telling you.
right? So they'll say trim it down to 2 inch, which will equal 1.5 inch finished. So what I'm going to do is, if you look, if you can see this, here's my 2 inch mark, and this is, well, it's 4 there, but that's 2 inches. I'm going to put those two lines on here.
So this
On
would
my
be the
stitch
cut
line.
size, not the finished size.
Correct. So, because what a lot of patterns will have you do, they'll have you open this up, and then you press it out, and then they'll have you go, okay, you put your 2 inch here and your 2 inch there, you cut, and then you turn around and you cut. What we prefer to do, because we're lazy and we like to do everything a little faster, is I'm going to take my 2 inch and my 2 inch, and I'm going to put it right on that stitch line. So far, so good? Cut, and now it's perfect. Woo-hoo. And you have to cut your dog ears off. Okay, so that's faster than just opening it up and trimming it, and then you press it to wherever you're supposed to press. So that's one way of doing it. Then there's a couple other ways that are much, I think, quicker and more accurate, and my favorite of all of them is triangle paper. Now, I remember triangle paper was introduced back when we were on Main Street, because we made a big hoo-ha thing because it was called TP.
Well, that was a decade ago.
That was a decade
Or two.
or three ago. So anyways, it's come a long way since then, but it's still the same basic premise. This is triangle paper. Now, you can get it in many variations and forms. So let me show you some of them. It comes like this. This is triangles on a roll, just a different company. And all you would do is you would, again, everything is always by the finished size.
Which kind of like if you guys have also heard of Thangles. This is just
Thangles,
a different
another
company
one.
producing these.
Right. So you would just cut off how many do I need, whack it off, and you put your right sides together. And that's how you do it, all right? So that's triangles on a roll. Another one is Primitive Gatherings has another one called triangle paper.
Which is very reminiscent of the old TP.
Right. I don't think the original company's even in business anymore.
Probably not.
So this is, and if you look at this, it'll say 1 inch. So that's 1 inch finished. And it usually tells you how many you're going to get. So this one you would get 40 half square triangles for the whole thing. You would get 10 per strip. All right. Same type of thing, just a different company. And these you buy by the specific size. All right. Then the other option, which is my real favorite, is triangulations. Now, this is a CD that you pop in your computer, and then what we like to use and what they recommend is if you have, Carol Doak does a foundation paper. It's like newsprint. It's a thinner paper. You actually print the triangle paper through your printer. So you can get, and I printed off the sheet, in that triangulation, it will go from size 1/2 inch finished up to size 3 inch finished. Once you get past 3, it's a waste of paper. But you can do that small on these things. It's wonderful. It's absolutely, with all the increments in between.
And the nice thing on the CD, when you bring up this page, so if you were doing 1 3/4 finish, you know that you're going to page 16 and you don't have to scroll through everything.
Right, right. So anyway, so what you do is once you figure out what size you want to do, you go to that page and you would hit print. Now, very important, very important. On your computer, when you go to print, you have to make sure that there is no scaling on it. So, because I know ours, it automatically came up, it wanted to do 95% of the actual size. No, you want 100%. You don't want fit to page, you don't want scaling, you want 100% of the actual size. And you'll do it once and you'll know that it's wrong. And the best way to figure that
Ask us how we know that.
Yeah, ask us how we know. And I don't know if you'll be able to read this, but what it'll tell you here, properly printed triangulations grid will measure 7 1/8 by 9 1/2. So you want to measure from edge to edge exactly what size it is and make sure that is correct. Because if it's not correct, your half square triangles are not going to be correct.
You'll be cussing us out.
Yes. But once you get that down, it's cake. So you just print off as many pages as you want. And that's the beauty of it. You can print off 10 pages, you can print off 100 pages, whatever you want. So once you get all your printing done, now you're ready to start sewing. Well, you're almost ready to start sewing. So what you do is you grab your 2 pieces of fabric you're going to do. Usually it's a light and a dark, but whatever. And I usually once I print the paper off, I cut away any excess paper and leave just like 1/4 inch. So you're going to right sides together your fabric, and then you're going to lightly pin your paper onto your fabric. Do not use a ton of pins or you'll just end up bleeding all over them. I usually 4 is max. You don't need any more than that. So then what you're going to do is, and I'll show you from, well, actually I'm going to sew on this one. So come on over here again. If you look at the paper, it's pretty obvious. What we're going to do is we're going to stitch on every one of these dotted lines. And then we're going to cut on all of the solid lines. So I'm going to start down here in the corner, and you see there's little arrows if you really want to know which way your direction you're going.
Yeah, the long and the short is you stitch on dotted, cut on solid.
Exactly.
Go any way you want.
Exactly.
I
You
like
just
going
keep
up
going.
the wrong side of the street anyway, so.
So just keep going, and you're just going to, once you get to the end of the row, flip it around.
Go past it a little bit, a stitch or two.
And then just flip it around and get rid of those pins as quick as you can. And you just keep going and going. So you go past, flip it up.
And they do recommend that you shorten your stitch length a little bit when you're doing that, because what that does is it perforates the paper a little bit more, so it makes ripping it off just a bit easier.
Okay? So you just keep going round and round and round, and that's how you sew it. Then it comes time to cut it. So if you have...
Come back on this side again.
Yeah, I'm going over here, though.
Well, goodness,
Sorry.
we don't know where we're going now.
Okay.
We're lost.
Yeah. This, if you have one of these, you want to dig it out. This is one of the rotary cutter mats that rotaries.
Revolving.
It rotaries for you.
It revolves.
It revolves. No, where did the 12? Did you take the? Oh, that's right
No, I
here.
didn't.
Okay. So remember what I said? We're going to cut on all of the solid lines. Now, sometimes it's a little hard to see, so you have a reference point. If you, and I don't know if you can get down here close enough for Marty. If you look down here, do you see that little point right there? It is actually 1 2 3/8. The 2 3/8 line is going to sit right on that next solid line. So if I can't even see over there, I don't care.
Right.
I know. So I usually, just because I'm anal, I go around and I trim all of the excess off.
Because you don't want to trim it off a small piece. It's just a pain in the patootie.
Right. So you just want to get rid of this as much as you can. Now, after you get, and you see how nice it is to have the revolving mat. It's not necessary, trust me. I could be walking around or I could be flipping it up, but you don't want to disturb it if you don't have to, because especially when I get to the next step. Okay.
It's really good for those of us who are lazy.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, so now I'm going to cut on all these. If you are careful, we're going to...
And it behooves you to be.
Yep, we're going to cut, slide the ruler over, cut, slide the ruler over, and I'm actually not even looking here. I'm looking over here on that 2 3/8 mark we talked about. Cut that, flip the mat around, but you see, by not disturbing this, I don't have to pick up a single one and move them. 2 3/8. 2 3/8.
All the
Flip it
straights are
around.
done. Now
Oh,
time for
no, the diagonals. And the diagonals, you can just put your 1/4 inch on the stitch line and you're good to go.
Because this is not a finished edge of the thing. This is all seam
Right.
allowance at this point.
Oops, one more down here. Okay. So once you get all the diagonals done, you just have to pick them all up. 1, 2.
So I think they got the idea.
I know.
This is your analness. You have to finish the job.
Yes. Okay, I won't. So then you just pick them up, and then this is what this is the way I do it. I pick them all up and I stack them in a little stack like that. Hank, you can stand right there.
Oh, okay.
Because now what we want to do is get rid of those pesky little dog ears. So I picked up all of my triangles. This is all of the ones that I got off of there. I'm gonna go like this, and you see that little line right there? That's where we're gonna cut. So rather than picking everyone up individually and setting it down, I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna fan them out like that. I'm gonna grab my scissors and I'm gonna go 1. Of course, I'm not doing it smoothly because Marty's over my shoulder. 2.
Well, it wouldn't be good for them
I
if I
know.
wasn't.
But you see what I'm doing? Do you see how much quicker this is? Now, the bad thing about it is you will have little triangles all over your carpet. But usually I sit with this in my lap with a plate or something underneath it. But you see how quick that goes? And then you flip it up and you do the other side. All right? Mm-hmm. So you would do your whole stack. So you have what looks like this. Now, believe it or not, there's a special way to rip the paper off. Thumbnail on the stitch line. You do not want to go like this, because chances are you're going to rip out a couple stitches here and a couple stitches there. If you go like this, grab the paper and go like that, it's done.
Do it again.
One more time. Thumbnail. And if you have a little extra piece, you just flip it off. Now, this is something Marty and I disagree on, but I'm going to show you my way, because she got to show you her way how to miter. So what I do, and again, you can all do this all on your couch or in your easy chair. What I do at this point, after I get a bunch ripped off, I usually have one of those little cutting presses in my lap. On my cutting press, I will take these and I will go with my thumbnail. You never knew your thumbnail was...
expecting that you have a thumbnail.
Well, you can use your thumb, whatever. So do you see what I'm doing? You're just going like this. The way I was taught was, because the half square triangle can be a little bit more persnickety as far as bias, you don't want to start reaming on it with an iron. So with an iron, go like that. Then you take your iron and you go like that, and it's done. And you have all of your perfect half square triangles. Perfect, perfect, perfect. All right? So that is triangle paper. There's many different kinds, many different brands. Find the one you like, but it is invaluable. So now we're going to switch places. And
okay.
Oh,
don't hit the stop button this time.
Okay, I know.
So we're going to be very
time.
careful. That's why you got to splice.
Yes. Okay. All right.
All right. So now moving on, a couple of different other ways that you can do it, and a lot of it is going to depend on the situation.
You only have 5 minutes. I know.
Don't make me flip you off. Okay. So what one of them, and this is a new product by Cluck Cluck Sew, and it's called Diagonal Seam. So what you would do, and if you want to come on over here, get your mess out of the way. So before, when you were sewing half square triangles, or if you were marking that center line,
a ruler. Hang on.
Okay, so the traditional way is they would have you sew or mark the center line, And if you are going to do this, you noticed I'm using a mechanical pencil so you have a really nice fine line. And then you would have to sew on both sides. So to prevent that, what they have is this is a tape that you can now stick to your throat plate. And I'm just going to show you. You can do this.
I know, I forgot.
Okay. And you can see where it has, there's a quarter, you have a center line and then you have a 1/4 of an inch on both sides. So what you would want to do, and it depends on the size, half square triangles you're doing, but when in the space that you have in front of your feed dogs, take off a length of this. And then what you want to do is stick it right in front of your feed dogs. You want to make sure that you're not on it. And the other thing that I'm lining up is I have a 1/4 inch mark on my throat plate here, but then you also want to make sure that this is dead center with your needle.
And one way to do that is if you drop your needle down. Yep.
And then you would put a ruler right up against your needle. Dang, look at that.
And that red line
should be right on your red line. So now instead of marking, what you would do is you would have your 2 squares right sides together. Now if you were sewing the exact middle, you would start it, and you see how the point is right on the edge because I have a 1/4 inch foot on both sides. You would start it so that it was right on that edge. Get it up where the needle's going to hit it, Marty. Okay. And then what you would do is you don't look here anymore. You're going to look right down here at the point. And what I do is I have that point. It's going to ride this black line, which is that 1/4 of an inch away from dead center, all the way up. So I'm looking here. So I am stitching that all the way up. Now, if I was going to do more of these, then I would feed my next one in right after it. Again, so now I'm going to put it on the other side, because if I do this, then they're going to overlap. But that's why you have both sides marked. So you would start with your 1/4 of an inch there, start it in, take a couple stitches. Now I'm going to ride my point on this side. So I'm looking here, and again, riding it right up that black line. So then you can kind of sandwich them a little bit better. And then when you need to do the other side, all you've got to do is, again,
that is slick. I did not
put
know
it on
that.
the
How
1/4.
many years have I been doing this? Yeah.
I've taught you something today, Grasshopper.
Thank you.
So again, looking here, ride it right up. And then all you'd have to do is cut in between them. Okay?
And your dog ears.
In your dog ears. So again, this is a new tape by Cluck Cluck. So I think there's like 10 yards on this, which is a lot, and it was only $7.50. So really, really inexpensive for something like that. And if you have a drop-in bobbin, all you'll have to do is pick up the tape and pop it back down again when you're done.
And you can leave it on forever until
you
it
can
becomes,
leave it on.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a nice slidey tape, so there's nothing friction there. Okay, last one that we're going to show you.
Told you this was going to be a long one.
I know, I'm sorry. Okay.
You want to go over to the cutting table?
Yes, but I want to press first.
Okay.
So the next one is, a lot of the times, for those of you that like pre-cuts, so you have your 2.5 inch strip, but all of a sudden they want you to have a half square triangle that matches your 2.5 inch strip. Well, you can't do that. And here's a little bit of math for you, whether you do it or not. Whenever you have a half square triangle, if you have to figure out what size it is, look and see what they're asking it to finish down to. So if they want a 2 inch finished half square triangle when you're done, so if you think about it, if it's 2 inch finish, you would have to add 1/4 and 1/4 for your seam allowance, so 1/2 inch. And then for every diagonal cut that you make on that square, you add another 3/8. That's why you get measurements like 2 7/8 or 3 3/8, things like that. That's the math behind that. So whenever you have that 2.5 pre-cut strip, you would need a 2 7/8 inch square to do the half square triangle, which out of a pre-cut you're not going to get. So the easy way around that is by using a ruler. Where did it go? It was in the pile someplace. Where did it go?
Do you want me to pause?
No. Oh, good gracious, where did it go?
Chatterbumps yourself for a minute.
Hold the phone. I don't think
While Marty is off looking for the ruler, I'll show you a couple different things here. These are just a couple new projects that we whipped up this week. This one is another little tea towel, very quick and easy. This one is called the Goldfinch Tea Towel. Just a quick little machine applique Then we also have one, this one is my favorite because I like doing yo-yos. This one is called Blueberry Pie. And these little guys, whoops, these little guys are dimensional yo-yos. So again, this is like an evening project, no sweat at all. And then we had one other one we finished, actually a friend of ours finished for us this week. This is a wool topper called Pansies. And if you look really nice and closely, look at the beads on the outside edge. Gotta love them. Oh, one more thing, forgot. This is a new thing by Buttermilk Basin. They've started doing these little clipboard things. So you put it in a book rack, little clipboard, my arm's not long enough, clipboard thing, but then, sorry, I can't do it. Marty, would you just put that in there?
Mm-hmm.
So you just clip your little,
Wool project.
your wool project
You can
in.
even hang it on the wall.
And you could hang it on the wall. But isn't that cute? Okay, Marty found a ruler,
Yes,
so
I
we're
did.
back. We're back.
Okay, so you've got your two fabrics that you wanted to make your half square triangle. And what I like to do is go to the iron first, lay them on top of each other, and give them a press, just because that helps them stick together a little bit better. And when you do your cutting, the pieces are ready to rock right into your sewing machine. So,
I've got your ruler.
thank you. I gotta have a cutting board back. What a mess.
I know.
Okay, so I've got my two layers here, and this is called an easy angle ruler. And this ruler has been around for 100 years. I mean, we've had it forever and ever. But for instances like this, it comes in great. And if you notice what it is it's got a top. The top is lopped off, so it doesn't come out to a point. And what that does is it automatically takes one of your dog ears off. So you've got your 2.5-inch strip, and you really don't even have to do any math at this point.
I wonder why they weren't called cat ears.
I don't know.
Do you wonder?
That's a good question, Terry. So what I'm going to do first is just trim up this side. So I'm going to have a nice even, and then cut. And so I have a pair ready to go right into the machine. So then now I'm just going to flip, line everything back up with my cut edges, cut. There's another one.
Now you
Cut.
could take your strip and fold it in half, right?
Yes. Well, you could layer up too.
Right.
I probably wouldn't go much more than that just because it's going to get very bulky at
Right.
that point. But you can see they're going to come out perfect. You only have to trim one deer, and all you've got to do is do the 1/4-inch seam when you're done.
Right.
So the easy angle comes in really handy for instances like that.
For jelly rolls.
For jelly rolls. Or when you have a place like the cross that we were doing, that the strips were already pre-cut into the 2 inches. And then you still had to make some half square triangles out of it. So how do you get that 2 3/8 inch out of
Right.
it? You don't.
Exactly.
You don't. So the easy angle is the answer on how to fix that problem. So I think that's it. We showed you a little bit of new, very old technique with half square triangles, but we're all set. We'll be back on for next Tuesday. We'll see you next week.
God willing.
God willing.
Bye.
Bye.